optimistic about that?
Yeah, for sure, because I think a lot of informal economy will be getting into the formal economy due to the tax. And therefore, a couple of percentage point is sure to happen.
It's probably going to be more than that.
Yeah, more than that.
Yeah. I know we continue to be extremely optimistic about it as well.
Yeah.
And generally about the economy, how are you feeling? I mean, a lot of people say that now global growth is coming back and that's going to be a positive. How do you see that? And the whole commodity cycle issue.
Yeah, there are two parts. My take on the economy is that there are two parts to the economy. One is the public sector, government sector, where government is really investing and are really pushing forward or accelerating and investing a lot of money in infrastructure and other parts of the housing and everywhere. On the other side, the private sector is still a bit sluggish, still not there and still not very enthusiastic in investments because they have stretched balance sheets, most of them, and highly leveraged. So probably, and the good ones are still waiting and wanting to see what's happening, whether we should use this money for consolidating and go through these NCLT and whether use that money or build capacity. So I think it's a little bit of wait and watch from the private sector. They're not yet opening their purse, as they call it.
So all of this, the global economic scenario, the government investments that you talked about, the short term, I think we will see some of the stuff come through. But if you were taking a 1 or 2 year view, how do you see the whole steel sector itself? What do you think is happening in terms of steel prices, steel demand? Do you see any structural changes in the construction sector, etc., which are going to spur steel demand going out in the future? And of course, this whole MIP, what impact has that had and how do you think that will sustain out?
Yeah, so I mean, there are many questions in this one question, but yeah, let me try and answer them. So steel is as we know, is a very basic material and is needed for anything and everything, from automobile to machine building to house building to road construction so everything. So therefore, I am very bullish about steel and particularly in India, because we are right now we have a very small capacity. If we view versus China, though one can say that versus China in everything we are much lower, but steel, if China can consume 700 million tons, then we cannot stay at 80, 90 million tons. We have to grow to 200, 300 million tons. So therefore I'm quite bullish, and that's why I'm really focused on steel and I'm growing it rapidly. But coming to the MIP question, the steel industry, as you know, in the last 3-4 years have really suffered. In India, leave aside in the large steel companies, except for Tata Steel and JSW Steel, every other steel company has gone into red, and big time red, and the reason for that is that the Chinese and the other world steel producers were dumping steel into India at very, very low prices. And JSW Steel is very efficient producer of steel and therefore could survive. Tata Steel has, while being efficient, they also have backup of their raw material integration. So therefore they could survive. And others really suffered and are into big problems. So therefore this government was very quick to understand, and it took them like less than 2 years, 1.5 years to understand that what is needed to save this industry. And as I said, once again, I'm saying that this government is very responsive. It understands the pain points and try to address them. So that's how the MIP helped us at that phase of time. But what happened was that immediately after the MIP got implemented, within 3-4 months, the global steel prices started going up, along with the raw material prices, with the commodity cycle. So today we are about $100. The MIP is $100 less than the
Right.
international prices.
Right.
So today MIP has no relevance, but it's a good
But
message
it
to
was
the world
available when it was needed.
when we needed it. And it was good message to the world that don't mess with us. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Not mess with India, and we will block you.
Yeah.
And interestingly, after India took the action, Europe took the action, Brazil, Malaysia, Thailand, every country started blocking China, and China reduced their exports a lot.
Yeah, I think that was obviously, as you said, decision taken at the right time and sending the right message both globally and domestically.
Yeah.
You referred to JSW and Tata Steel as being the two companies which have survived in a tough cycle. Obviously, the strategies of the two have been very different. You've got the lowest cost plant. I remember from the first time that I met you when I was in ICICI, that's what you took pride in, that's what you stayed consistently, being the lowest cost producer of steel. But Tata Steel has had this integrated strategy. So are you going to continue with the strategy you've had, or are you looking at backward integration? Any change in the thinking?
No, so Tata Steel strategy is because
They've historically had the money.
Yeah, they had this legacy. They had Jamshedji Tata behind them, and he decided way back in 1900s or 1890, whatever, to acquire the mines, and there was nobody at that time, so he could put his hand and acquire that. So, and they are reaping the benefits, and I have no grudge against them because they deserve to do that. In our case, we were very keen to have the mines, and that's why we went to Karnataka and we signed the MOU with the government. But then, unfortunately, it got very litigated, and every time we would apply, there were 100 people more would apply, and then it will go to the courts and it will remain there. That's why actually, when this government came in, I went to meet the Prime Minister, and my only request to him was, in fact, actually, before he became Prime Minister, as Chief Minister, I had told him that whenever you become Prime Minister, first thing my request to you is that bring transparency in the mining laws. And I think the first bill which was passed in the Parliament was the mining bill, where they brought in transparency and through auctions, the mines will be allocated. And therefore, we got now five mines. And going forward, we are sure to be 100% or say 70% of our own captive iron ore. So which will be a big boost to JSW Steel.
And while we are on steel, are you excited about all the opportunities that are going to come up in steel with the NCLT? And how are you looking at that?
So,
as bankers, I can tell you that we are all looking at you, okay? And hoping that you will take some of those assets and make them productive, which will be good for the economy, good for the assets.
No, so there are a couple of assets which we are very serious about. We are because we don't have a very large bandwidth to manage too many units, but a couple of them which are good assets we are focused on, and we are working to see that we can give a good bid there and do that. Because in the past, we have, in the steel business, we have acquired two assets, Siscol and Ispat Industries, and both these assets we turned around very quickly and made them profitable, and so we really know which one to take over and then how to turn it around. So we do a lot of homework before we really get in there. So we have identified two assets. We are not spreading ourselves thin, and if we can, we would like to look at these two assets.
Great. And if we move beyond steel to some of the other sectors that you've recently been interested in and have got into, cement, power, how are you looking at that?
So power sector is a very interesting sector. Because again, if you see a lot of other, like steel, a lot of consolidation has to happen in power sector. So if, today there are so many assets which are lying
stranded.
Stranded.
Or underutilized.
Underutilized or stranded, because I think in 2003-4,
Yeah.
the power scenario was different and merchant prices
Yeah.
went up to 8-9 rupees, and a couple of plants made too much money,
Yeah.
which gave rise to belief amongst everybody that you can make
Yeah.
a lot of money in power and it's an easy business. So a lot of people who were like panwalas and
Yeah.
bidi they all went into setting up power plants.
Yeah.
So, and without knowing the business and got stuck, and
Yeah.
those assets are stranded. So I see a big opportunity there for consolidation,
Right.
and JSW Energy will play a very important role once again there to at least 4 or 5 assets we are
Right.
looking at to acquire, and
The coal-based or renewables or a mix?
no, right now these are all coal-based.
Right.
Renewable probably will also become stressed after
Yeah.
some time, the
Yeah.
way they have been quoted in the past, and then we will take a look
Yeah.
at them. On the on the renewable, my view is that right now JSW Energy is focusing on rooftops,
Yeah. Yeah.
small plants, but rooftops on the industrial sheds
Right.
and over the in the tier 2, tier 3 homes, small
Yeah.
in the cities. So I believe that that could be a good model where
Yeah.
it can be fed into the grid and during the day and you recover during the
Yeah.
night. So it can work very well. So we are, in fact, recently we got I think $100 million
Right.
line of credit from State Bank funded
Yeah.
by World Bank.
Yeah.
So that as a start, to start. Otherwise, we are mostly right now focused on hydro and thermal and hydro. And because thermal will remain at least for next 10, 15 years
Right.
for sure. So as a mainstay. And I feel that it's a great opportunity in the energy
And I'm
power
sure
sector.
all the bankers in this room will be happy to have heard that you feel that yes, thermal is going to turn around and
Yeah.
going to remain an
Yeah.
opportunity.
No, because no new
New
plants are coming up.
capacity is going to come up, yeah.
So and there is a lot of large, let's say, retired capacity which is
Yeah.
still running.
Yeah.
Very low PLFs, very low fuel efficiency.
Yeah.
So these will close down. I
Yeah.
think I'm told that in next 5 years, nearly 40 to
Yeah.
50,000 megawatts is going to be
Yeah.
phased out.
Yeah.
And the new capacity which is stranded and is about 30, 40,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and
So
plus we are growing at 5, 6,
Yeah.
7% a year.
Yeah, so it'll all get absorbed in a couple of years.
Yeah, very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can't kind of close without asking you some personal questions. I think one interesting thing about you and the family is that, of course, you come from a family of steel, but we have 3 brothers who are all in steel businesses.
4 brothers.
Four brothers who are all in steel businesses, and despite all of you being in steel businesses,
How do we work?
Yeah, how you work together, and that's really interesting.
So when we were getting into business, we have age gap.
Yeah.
Like my older brother is 8 years older, and my younger brother is
Yeah.
youngest one is 10 years younger. So it's like a generation gap between each of us. So when we were getting into businesses, my father told us that you will be doing your own business. If you work hard and you are successful, you can grow. If you're not, I will give you enough to live your life, but don't expect anything from your brothers. So that there is no confusion.
Right.
He made it very clear. So that really worked very well. Secondly, we work like at arm's length, like competitors.
Yeah.
So it is rather than have, it's better to have your brother as your competitor than Tata Steel or somebody else. So therefore, we work quite well.
Yeah.
We work quite well, and there's no problem. But fortunately, like one of the brothers is in only pipes business.
Yeah.
One is only stainless steel.
Yeah.
And I am in flat products mostly, and Naveen is in the long products.
Yeah.
So
there are
informally there is a categorization, but there are at times we have overlap.
Yeah.
But because we are not taking the call, it's our professionals, managers, they are taking the call. They work like independent entities.
And as Parth comes into the business, Is he excited about steel, or is he excited about all the new businesses that you're looking at?
No, so I'm still very excited about steel, so he has no chance.
So he doesn't have a chance.
So he doesn't come near steel at all. So he came and, like when I got into business, my father had this small unit in Bombay
Right.
for me. And he said that, would you go to Bombay from Delhi? So, and that time, I felt that Bombay was not the place for me because it's completely different city compared to Delhi. And Delhi, you have big gardens and in the house and you have large spaces and Bombay.
But Bombay, you don't have the pollution, so.
No, of course, no. Today I'm complete fan of Bombay. I was in Delhi yesterday and, I'm complete fan of Bombay. So Bombay, there is no comparison because, the culture, my growth is, I give a huge credit to Bombay. Bombay is amazing. So,
by the way, I also came to Bombay for the first time to work. And now I can't imagine living anywhere else.
Exactly. So, so I was, sorry, I
you were talking about part.
Yeah. So my father told me this to manage this business and told me that, if you do well, you can grow. If you don't do well, you come back to Delhi and I'll give you enough. So same thing I told Parth that, if you want to do well, then because Parth is much more educated than me, I'm just an engineer. He did his MBA, went to Harvard, and also he's more qualified than me. So I told him that, you do your own new ideas and things. So that's why, he took up cement and paints and new businesses and venture capital. So though I was very against him to enter into venture capital, against as in I thought that, venture capital is an easy business. Somebody else is working hard for you because you have money, so you put, I'm sure there must be few venture capitalists here. You are using somebody else's money and, sitting in the office. Of course, not easy because you have to use a lot of your brains. But for me, hard work means on the floor, shop floor. So, but he's enjoying the journey. He's just started.
So I was actually on a panel recently with Parth, and he was telling me how he's excited about the paints business and how he's thinking about doing it very differently.
So you see, he picked up, so I didn't have any idea of finance and because I'm an engineer, technical, what gave me technical satisfaction, I went into that area. He chose businesses which has got high multiples, cement and paint and...
So he's making the best of both worlds, understanding finance and the real world.
So he explained to me, look at Asian Paints, it's got 60 multiple and cement is 20 Shri cement or, Ultratech, 17, 20 multiples. Steel what, 7, 8, So I said, okay, you do what you like,
What else do I have here? Now about the foundation, I wanted to ask you about your ambitions on the foundation and what you're doing there. And
so foundation, it's headed by Sangeeta, my wife. And she's pretty passionate about many things. And the foundation doesn't have yet that much money. I think they spend about 150 crore rupees a year.
That's not a small amount.
Not a small money, but her ambitions are much greater than that. So she keeps pushing me to work harder to earn more money. But one very interesting project that I'm doing is absolutely, which is my project. Sorry, not Sangeeta's project. It's rebuilding Kedarnath.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So Kedarnath is the holy shrine of Shiva temple built by Adi Shankaracharya. And it got devastated in 2013 floods. So I went there and I felt that, everything is damaged, demolished. So it's a great opportunity to make one pilgrimage center of ours of that repute to be world class.
Wow.
So now, and good thing is that Prime Minister has, is very, very keen. He came with me to Kedarnath to lay the foundation stone. And so I'm very excited about that.
And what about the access roads? That will get better as
well? One has to walk it, or you can chopper it.
Okay.
But I think that's a good idea to trek it. It's really nice. When you go, it's very tough. I would urge the youngsters, when the temple opens, please visit it. It's beautiful. And So I was going the other day. I had walked
So
up.
how
And
long is the trek?
it's 12 kilometers. So it takes
Oh,
about 3-4 hours,
okay.
4-5 hours. It's tough
Yeah.
because it's pretty
Yeah.
steep. But because Kedarnath is at 11,500
Right.
feet, so it's high. So I was coming down in the afternoon, and one father and son were going up, and father must be 70-year-old.
Right.
And so I stopped, and I said, they had stopped. They were taking a breather. I said, I asked the son. So the father interjected. He said, he has decided to show me all the temples, so that's why I'm going. So it was very touching, and it was fantastic. So I patted on the son. I said, well done. So he was kind of pushing his father, and it was very interesting. So this Kedarnath is a very nice project.
So when does the temple open? Yeah.
So we've got all the approvals. Work has started. We hope that when the temple opens, we'll have, because the Prime Minister said that he will be opening the temple. He will go to open the temple, and then he will...
he's going to get...
No, he goes by chopper. And that he will...
No, given our Prime Minister, he could check
he
it,
could
right?
do that. So, I did not know that he was so passionate about Kedarnath. Later on, I came to know that when he was young, he wanted to become a monk. And he stayed 4 years in Kedarnath.
Wow.
In a cave.
Wow.
Which probably we all, not many people know. So he had renounced life, and he wanted to become a monk and sadhu, and he lived 4 years in a cave in a place called Garud Chatti, very close to Kedarnath. So he's very keen. So he said that I had, in his speech, he said that I had, because he can talk very nicely, right? He's mesmerizing. So he said that I had decided to leave and do seva of Baba, God, Lord Shiva. So probably Lord Shiva had some other ideas, and he said कि एक बाबा नहीं 125 करोड़ बाबा की सेवा करो. So that is why he sent me back. So it was very interesting.
So when the temple opens, I'm going to take a favor from you.
Yes, you please come. We'll go. Yes.
Because I'm a Shiva follower as well.
Oh, you are? Okay. Yeah, it's amazing. But it's a very amazing temple. Everything. I'm not a great believer or great religious guy and all like that. I don't do puja. I hardly go to temples. But there I get some different vibrations. Energy. And this whole, when the floods came, the temple was saved by this big rock which came and stopped just ahead of the temple. So there has to be some power.
There is something.
Yeah.
I don't want to be hogging all the time, because I'm sure there are people in the audience who want to ask some questions.
Okay.
So let me open it up.
Can I... Shikha said that we leave it open to the audience to ask questions for Mr. Jindal.
JSW Energy has announced a foray into the electrical vehicles and storage. So could you take us through your thought process and a way forward for this business?
So, our belief in the group is, and I think most of us believe that the future of mobility is electric. I don't think we are going to see the IC engines for a very long time. It will go the way the mobile telephony happened. Now there is no more landlines, or landlines are there, but people do not really want it. So exactly the same way the electric mobility will happen very soon. And if you were in Delhi yesterday, you would want it yesterday, the electric mobility. But I'm pretty convinced, and so therefore we thought that we as a group must enter into getting into EV, electric vehicle. Because I was very passionate about building a car. Before I got into steel, I wanted to make cars. And unfortunately for me, or fortunately for me, it did not happen at that time. And I couldn't get a good collaboration, good technical tie-up, late 80s. And so this project didn't happen. So it was always, the desire was always there. Now when this electric thing came, it's a complete paradigm shift as far as cars are concerned. It's a complete different technology. You don't need the engine plant. It's a total different drive mechanism. So I thought that this is a good time. The people with IC with engines are still in denial mode, still thinking that it will happen. But how AT&T was in a denial mode for mobile telephony in the US, and that's why all this Sprint and everybody else came in. So similarly, I feel though now times have changed, people have probably learned from earlier experiences. But I thought that JSW Energy can play a very important role in making electric cars. So we are really working very hard. We have got a very good team which is working on this, and we are going to make a very smart car, very, very nice vehicle.
So when does the car come out?
We want to do it fast, but I think 2020.
Okay. Not
Yeah.
too far.
Yeah.
So that will be the Indian Tesla.
Hopefully, yes. Yes. So we are going, Indian Tesla for Indian markets, Indian pricing, yeah.
Hi, sir. I have two questions on the steel side. So, number one is, when you said you are very bullish on the steel sector on India, so how should we look at the JSW Steel? Can it be like in a broader view, in a longer term, say 10 years, can it be like a 50 million ton company? And you think it's really achievable? This is number one. And number two is the entire steel versus aluminum debate. Many people think that the aluminum is the metal of future because weight to density ratio is 4 or 5, and the world is moving towards lighter vehicles. In your own way of explaining EVs, so you think that the steel is replaceable, or is this aluminum thing is real threat in the longer term for steel? These are the two questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your questions. I think as far as JSW Steel is concerned, yes, I'm very bullish, and I'm also very bullish about steel consumption in India, which will grow quite rapidly as our purchasing power is increasing. More and more steel we are going to see we will consume. So therefore, JSW Steel right now is 18 million tons. And we already have a project of 5 million tons under construction in Dolvi, which was the erstwhile Ispat. And after that, we have plans to start work on Vijayanagar from 12 to 16, for which all the approvals are in place. But we will do it after the Dolvi expansion is completed. We haven't yet announced that project. Besides that, there would be some acquisitions through the process, NCLT process, that we are hoping inorganic growth will happen. So right now our vision is to get to about 40 million tons by 2025. That's kind of our target, from 18 to 40 million. That would be in India. If we expand anywhere else, acquire anything else overseas, that's a different thing. But right now we are focused in India, and we are working on this target. On the steel versus aluminium debate, I completely agree that aluminium is a metal which is also a very important metal. I mean, steel is value-wise, strength and value-wise is the best material in the world till now, till something new comes up. Aluminium is the next one, which is close to it, 2.5 times, 2.4 times more lighter than steel. This one, the electric cars, there is a big debate going on that most electric cars are coming up in aluminium because they need lighter, but they also need strength. So there was a very nice ad which General Motors had done against Ford. Ford has started manufacturing manufacturing aluminium body cars, whereas General Motors doesn't believe in aluminium. So the ad was, I saw it, that there is this two cages in a big hall. One was made of aluminium, one cage, and one cage was made of steel bars. And so this guy was left in this hall, and suddenly the door opens and a big grizzly bear comes in.
Oh.
So this guy runs and enters into the steel cage and locks himself up. And the grizzly bear comes and throws the aluminum cage like that, and steel cage, he's trying to, struggle and can't open it. So and then the thing is, which one would you choose? And end of the ad, which was very smart, very nicely done, because you want to feel safe inside the car. So that's why. But aluminium, it's more and more picking up. The aluminium for the auto industry is becoming a threat. But then steel for the auto industry is about only 5 to 7%. So it's not that it's a big change for the steel industry if the auto shifts. Though we are worried, steel industry is worried that and therefore steel industry is also doing a lot of R&D to make thinner and harder material, more lighter and higher strength. So which is called high strength steel, HSS steel. So we are also doing that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sir, in one of your remarks, you mentioned that the government has been responsive to the needs of the steel industry, and specifically MIP is something that's really worked wonders. Is there any other area in terms of policy matters that you are kind of asking government for some help, or any specific areas where the government still not responding to your queries?
No, I think.
I'm not sure he's going to tell us that right now. Right?
No, but this government is very responsive. If you go with a reasonable request, if you go with reasoning that why this policy advocacy is required, they are very open to the idea. So that's really very, very, very good thing about this government. They are very responsive. So there is nothing that is pending which we need to push at Delhi.
And then second question, if I could. Clearly, the focus for JSW Steel has been flat products. With a Make in India initiative and what we see from the railway side, wherein SAIL per se has not been able to kind of meet to the capacity requirements, and there are shortages and the government's talking about tenders internationally. So is that an area in longs that you would kind of look at all, or you believe that flat still there's a significant story and a long way to go?
No, so what's happening is that more and more long products are manufactured from flat products. The tubings, the square tubing, the rectangular tubing, which is replacing the old joists and angles and channels. That is being replaced by these kind of things. So therefore, flat is becoming more and more in use. Secondly, regarding rails, we had thought about it long time ago, but within our group, JSPL has a world-class rail mill, but they don't get a single order from Indian Railways. And as a policy, JSW Steel has a policy that JSW Group has a policy that we don't go anywhere where government is the buyer and only buyer, then no chance. Because there is no government, there is no face to the government. Today we have Prime Minister Modi, tomorrow we don't know, and it's run by bureaucrats, so it's very difficult. So we don't get into that area.
Thank you.
I think we have to learn risk management from you, Sajjan.
Yeah, I mean, if you see in the power sector,
Yeah, that's exactly the problem.
people sign PPAs without knowing what's the fuel.
Yeah.
Or buying fuel in Indonesia or Australia or wherever, thinking that the government will allow you to take the coal at the cost price. That's not possible. So we didn't sign any PPA. Either we were merchant.
Yeah.
If we couldn't sign PPA, then we went and had built merchant, or we had both ends closed. So, and that's really helped us.
Yeah, hi, good evening. Just one question. JSW Steel's differentiating factor has been the ability to add capacity at globally competitive costs. And so we've been adding capacity at close to 500, 550 versus others which are substantially ahead. In the journey of 18 to 40 million tons, would this competitiveness continue? What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I mean, in fact, if you see our initial first costs were high because of the delays in the project and learning curve and all. After that, it is at 3,000 rupees per million, 3,000 crore rupees per million ton is our kind of a benchmark, or 450 dollars per million tons. So that is our you can say the strength of JSW Steel is the strength. We build world-class facilities with the best equipments, best plants at a less than half the cost of the world average, and even Indian averages. If you see what Tata Steel has built, or Steel Authority is building, or anybody else has built in India, we are even less than half their cost, all our capacity. That is our strength, because we have built a very strong project execution team and a very strong project management team. So that has really helped us, because steel being highly capital intensive industry, you need to be very smart in these areas, and that's where we have really focused.
Yeah.
Hi, sir. I have two questions. One is, what is the biggest risk you have ever taken? And the second one is, what's your plan for the transportation, or more specifically, the port sector?
Transportation of?
The
Port sector.
Port sector.
The port sector.
So biggest risk, good question.
Yeah, waiting to hear that one.
Very, okay. So when I was building this steel plant, Vijayanagar steel plant, which was that time JVSL and then became JSW Steel, in '94, and that time Shikha was in ICICI, and I met Mr. Wagul. So the size of my company or my business was 200, and that year's the turnover of that company was 250 crores. And I wanted to set up a 4,000 crore plant. So it was like, in today's terminology, it's impossible. You can't even think like that. But so that was one risk. At that time, I had no idea. I was completely blank. I was so enthusiastic. I was so pumped up and so keen. And I somehow managed to convince Mr. Wagul. I used all my charm, my whatever was needed. I sat with him.
You were very convincing.
Yeah. So I really, he told me that call your dad, because I was young, and he said, you call your father, I want to understand from him. I said, no, I can't call, because he doesn't speak English, and you don't speak Hindi, so what's the point? He said, no, we will communicate. You don't have to worry about that. You bring him. So I really avoided it, and but then I convinced him finally to do the project, and it went through its difficulties. I chose. Second risk was, so that was one big risk that I took. But as I said, I never thought that was a risk. Second, these are risks in hindsight. I think mostly you find risk in hindsight.
Yes.
Second was that I chose new technology to make steel plant, because I was like a dreamer, and I always used to think that, I used to visit steel plants all over the world, and I used to think that, why cannot there be a new technology for this or new technology for that? And there I found a new technology called Corex, and first time in the world of that size that I was building in JSW Steel, and not knowing that if it fails, then what happens? And sure enough, it had its teething problems. In fact, there was huge amount of skepticism about that technology, and people said it won't work. But ICICI supported completely, and it suffered. We suffered also due to some extraneous factors, but then we brought it back and fixed it. So that worked very well. So these were the two big risks, I would say. So when we were going through difficulties, so there was a joke in our company. So our CEO was Dr. S.K. Gupta, who was the MD of Steel Authority of India, and I had taken him pre-retirement. So when we were facing this trouble, so he said, well, Sajjan, if a mice gives birth to an elephant, then obviously there will be labor pains. So you have to suffer the pain. You don't have to worry about it. So so this is how we went through.
And the
I had a
second one,
question.
what are your plans for the port sector?
Port sector, yeah, sorry. Port is a very interesting area. As India's GDP grows, our trade will increase, imports and exports will increase. Earlier we were exporting minerals, then we started exporting steel and bulk materials. Now we would be exporting more and more value-added products from the ports. So ports will remain a very important link for the trade. And so JSW Steel, JSW Infra is really focused on a port business. And they have now about 5 locations where they have either the ports or the berths within the large ports of the government. So we have a good plans to even to consolidate. There are standalone ports in India. So we are looking at, if we can acquire them and consolidate and make.
And do you think this, the traffic is going to shift from on land to by sea with all this chain of ports that's coming?
With Sagarmala, that's another one which was, this government is really pushing. And Sagarmala,
that could transform.
We already transport a lot of our material on coastal, but it's going to increase with time.
Yeah, hi, I had a question on, you've had some pretty nice things to say about how the government is functioning. In fact, a lot of industrialists have said the same. But at the same time, the private sector is not committing to capex. So what macro changes or policy changes is the private sector waiting for before committing to capex more aggressively?
So I think 2-3 things. One is that the private sector is still struggling with the highly leveraged balance sheets. One, probably. Second is that there is still capacity which is in there, which was built over the last 4-5 years. We haven't seen very high industrial growth in the last 4-5 years. So therefore, those capacities are yet to be fully utilized. So that's why there is this probably a wait and watch situation that as soon as we come to 80-85% capacity utilization levels, we will start building new capacity. For example, power sector, as I was mentioning, it's already no new capacity is being built. Steel, no new capacity is being built. Even like we are building in Dolvi, and I don't know if anybody else probably Steel Authority is completing few of their projects. But we are all awaiting, if we have balance sheet strength, we are all waiting for acquiring assets and consolidating that and not building new ones. So therefore, that's why the economy is not able to see a big industrial growth.
Any policy changes that can help the case?
No, I think, if you see interest rates are also benign, it's quite low. And so all factors are pretty conducive for a big bang, growth in industry, industrial expansions or investments. But I don't know why it's not happening. But private sector is still holding. I was hoping that last year it'll start sometime around this time, but it has really not happened.
One of the possibilities is that there are a lot of leveraged companies who obviously don't have the capacity to do this. And probably the companies who have the ability to invest are saying there's going to be a fire sale of stressed assets.
Absolutely.
So let me go first, acquire those, and then think about new investment.
Absolutely.
And as growth and consumption comes back, I think a year, 18 months from now, that whole sentiment might change.
And this time around, I think better quality of investments will happen.
Exactly.
People will be much wiser, and they will be more cautious.